Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast, Season 2, the show where I read the Tanakh and provide my own interpretations of what I think it all means. This week's episode falls on the 20th of September 2025, Elul 275785, the last of the Hebrew year before we get to 5786, and it's for the portion of Nitzavim. Now, we're going to be continuing in the book of Melachim Bet, that's Kings 2, chapters 16 through 18. You could follow along in English on Chabad.org. As always, I remind everybody I'm not a professional scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the scripture. Let's begin. Chapter 16, verse 1, Kings 2. In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, the son of Yotam, king of Judah, became king. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did not do what was proper in the eyes of the Lord his God, like David his father. He went in the ways of the kings of Israel, and also he passed his son through fire in the abominable manner of the nations whom the Lord had driven out from before the children of Israel. And he slaughtered sacrifices and burnt incense on the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. Then Rezin the king of Aram and Pekah the son of Remaliah the king of Israel went up to Jerusalem to wage war, and they besieged Ahaz, but they could not wage war with him. At that time, Rezin the king of Aram restored Elat to Aram, and drove out the Judeans from Elat. And Edomites came to Elat, and dwelt there until this day. And Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser the king of Assyria, saying, I am your servant and your son. Come up and save me from the hand of the king of Aram and from the hand of the king of Israel, who have risen up against me. And Ahaz took the silver and gold that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's palace, and sent them to the king of Assyria as a bribe. And the king of Assyria heeded him, and the king of Assyria went up to Damascus and seized it, and exiled its inhabitants to Kir, and he slew Rezin. And King Ahaz went toward Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, to Damascus, and he saw the altar that was in Damascus. And King Ahaz sent to Uriah the priest the likeness of the altar and its pattern according to all its workmanship. And Uriah the priest built the altar according to all that King Ahaz sent from Damascus, so did Uriah the priest make it until King Ahaz came from Damascus. And the king came from Damascus, and the king saw the altar, and the king approached the altar and offered up sacrifices thereon. And he burnt his burnt offering, and his meal offering, and he poured his libation, and sprinkled the blood of his peace offering on the altar. And the copper altar that was before the Lord he brought near from before the temple, from between the altar and the house of the Lord, and he placed it on the side of the altar to the north. And King Ahaz commanded Uriah the priest, saying, On the great altar burn the morning burnt offering, and the evening meal offering, and the king's burnt offering, and his meal offering, and the burnt offering of the entire people of the land, and their meal offering, and their libations, and the blood of every burnt offering, and the blood of every sacrifice you shall sprinkle on it, and the copper altar shall be for me to visit. And Uriah the priest did according to all that King Ahaz had commanded. And King Ahaz cut off the insets of the laver stands, and he removed the lavers from upon them, and he took the tank off the copper cattle that were under it, and put it on a stone floor. And the Sabbath canopy that they built in the house and the king's outside entrance he switched to the house of the Lord because of the king of Assyria. And the rest of Ahaz's deeds that he did are written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Judah. And Ahaz slept with his forefathers and was buried with his forefathers in the city of David, and Hezekiah his son reigned in his stead. End of chapter 16. So here we have Ahaz, the son of Yotam, is now the king of Judah. And as far as kings of Judah go, this guy is probably the worst ever. Totally worshiping idols, totally following in the wrong ways. And let's go into what happens with this guy. So he gets besieged by the king of Israel as well as the king of Aram. So the Arameans and the Israelites go and besiege the city of Jerusalem. And while they're stuck there, or they besiege all of Jerusalem, he sends an emissary to the king of Assyria, and he basically says, I'm your servant and your son, come save me, and he gives him a bribe, a gold and silver tribute. The king of Assyria says, okay, goes to Damascus, takes it, exiles the inhabitants, and then slays Rezin. And then he continues onward, and King Ahaz goes and meets with the king of Assyria in Damascus, and he sees the altar. So remember that in Damascus there was an altar erected, and this altar is, again, not the kosher kind. So when he sees this altar, he contacts the priest Uriah back in Jerusalem, and he tells him about it, and tells him how it's made and all the details, and has him build a copy of it in Jerusalem. And so the king comes back from Damascus, sees this new altar, and he offers all his sacrifices on it. And then it notes that the stuff from the temple, they take apart pieces of the temple as well, and say, the copper altar that was before the Lord, he brought near from before the temple, from between the altar and the house of the Lord, and he placed it on the side of the altar to the north. So he's taking away from the house of God and glorifying this altar instead. Now, from here, this is where the sacrifices will be done, all of them, and he obeys. Uriah obeys the king. Now, it also says that Ahaz cut off the insets of the laver stands, and he removed the lavers from upon them, took the tank of the copper cattle that were under it, put it on a stone floor. The Sabbath canopy built in the house and the king's outside entrance, he switched to the house of the Lord. So it says because of the king of Assyria. So I'm going to go on a limb and say that because of the bribe that he paid to the king of Assyria, that's why they needed to replenish some of the quality items inside of the temple. But ultimately, not good. So this guy, he made a lot of mistakes, and there are going to be consequences. Anyway, moving on to chapter 17, verse 1, Kings 2. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hoshea, the son of Elah, reigned over Israel for 9 years. And he did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord, though not like the kings of Israel who had preceded him. Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, went up against him, and Hoshea became his vassal and paid him tribute. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, that he sent messengers to So, the king of Egypt, and did not pay tribute to the king of Assyria as year by year. And the king of Assyria arrested him and confined him in prison. And the king of Assyria went up through the entire land, and he went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and exiled the Israelites to Assyria, and he repatriated them in Halah, Habor, the Gozan River, and the cities of Media. And it was when the children of Israel sinned to the Lord their God, who brought them up from the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh the king of Egypt, and they feared other gods, and they followed the statutes of the nations whom the Lord had driven out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel that they practiced. And the children of Israel fabricated things which were not so about the Lord their God, and they built themselves high places in all their cities, from watchtower to fortified cities, and they erected for themselves monuments and asherim on every high hill and under every green tree, and they burned incense there on all the high places, like the nations that the Lord had exiled from before them, and they did evil things to anger the Lord, and they worshipped idols, which the Lord had said to them, "You shall not do this thing." And the Lord warned Israel and Judah through all prophets of all visions, saying, "Repent of your evil ways, and keep my commandments, my statutes, according to the entire law that I commanded your forefathers, and that I sent to you through my servants the prophets." But they did not heed, and they hardened their nape like the nape of their forefathers who did not believe in the Lord their God. And they despised his statutes and his covenant that he had enacted with their forefathers, and his warnings that he had warned them. And they followed worthless things and became worthless, and after the nations that were around them, concerning whom the Lord had commanded them not to do like them. And they forsook all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made for themselves 2 molten calves, and they made an Asherah, and they prostrated themselves before the entire host of the heavens, and they worshipped the Baal. And they passed their sons and daughters through fire, and they practiced enchantment and divination, and they committed themselves to do what was evil in the eyes of the Lord to anger him. And the Lord became very much incensed against Israel, and he sent them away from before him. None was left but the tribe of Judah alone. Neither did Judah observe the commandments of the Lord their God, and they followed the practices of Israel that they did. And the Lord despised all the seed of Israel, and he afflicted them and delivered them into the hands of plunderers until he cast them away from before him. For Israel had torn away from the house of David, and had appointed Jeroboam the son of Nebat as king. And Jeroboam led Israel astray from following the Lord, and caused them to commit a grave sin. And the children of Israel followed all the sins of Jeroboam that he committed, and they did not turn away from it, until the Lord removed Israel from his presence, as he had spoken through all his servants the prophets, and Israel went in exile from their land to Assyria until this day. And the king of Assyria brought people from Babylonia, and from Cuthah, and from Avah, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and he settled them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they took possession of Samaria, and dwelt in its cities. And it was in the beginning of their dwelling there that they did not fear the Lord, and the Lord incited lions against them, and they were killing them. And they said to the king of Assyria, saying, The nation that you exiled and settled in the cities of Samaria do not know the law of the God of the land, and he has incited lions against them. And behold, they are killing them, as they do not know the law of the God of the land. And the king of Assyria commanded, saying, Bring there one of the priests whom I have exiled from there, and let them go and dwell there, and teach them the law of the God of the land. And one of the priests whom they had exiled from Samaria came and settled in Bethel, and he would direct them how they should fear the Lord. Now each nation made its god, and they placed it in the temple of the high places that the people of Samaria had made, each nation in their cities wherein they were dwelling. And the people of Babylonia made Sukkot Benot, and the people of Kut made Nergal, and the people of Hamath made Ashima, and the Avites made Nibhaz and Tartak, and the Sepharvites burnt their children in fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. And they feared the Lord, and they made some of them priests of the high places, and they would practice their rites in the temple of the high places. They feared the Lord, yet they worshipped their own gods, as was the custom of the nations whom they had exiled from there. Until this day they practice just as their earlier practices. They do not fear the Lord, neither do they practice according to their statutes and laws, nor according to the law and the commandment that the Lord commanded the sons of Jacob, whose name he called Israel. And the Lord enacted a covenant with them, saying, You shall not fear other gods, neither shall you prostrate yourselves to them, nor worship them, and you shall not slaughter sacrifices to them. Only the Lord who brought you up from the land of Egypt with great might and with an outstretched arm, him shall you fear, and to him shall you prostrate yourselves, and to him shall you slaughter your sacrifices. And the statutes and the judgments and the law and the commandment that he wrote for you, you shall heed to perform at all times, and you shall not fear strange gods. And the covenant that I enacted with you, you shall not forget, neither shall you fear strange gods. But the Lord your God shall you fear, and he will deliver you from the hand of all your enemies. But they did not obey according to their earlier practice they were doing. And these nations feared the Lord, yet they worshipped their graven images. Also their children and their grandchildren, as their forefathers had done, they are doing until this day. End of chapter 17. So here we find out the fate of the Israelites. So first, a note about chapter 16. I forgot to mention it, but Damascus, when Damascus was besieged and taken, the people there were exiled. And I read a different version of the text, and it said that the tribe of Naphtali was basically totally exiled. So this is like the first to fall, but as we see here in chapter 17, this is far worse. So what ends up happening is that the king of Israel is Hoshea, and he does what is evil in the eyes of the Lord. It says, not like the kings of Israel who preceded him. So Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, goes up against him, and Hoshea becomes his vassal, and he pays him tribute. So basically, he's defeated by Assyria, he becomes the vassal servant of the Assyrian king. But then, the king of Assyria finds out that Hoshea has been secretly conspiring against him, that he's been messaging the king of Egypt. Basically, it sounds like he's trying to get the Israelites set free by making some kind of a deal with the Egyptians, and he failed to pay tribute. So the Assyrians come through, and they basically conquer. They besiege Samaria for 3 years, and then it says, in the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Assyria takes Samaria and exiles the Israelites to Assyria. He then repatriates them in Halach, Habor, the Gozan River, and the cities of Media. So here we get the Babylonian exile, the very famous Babylonian exile. Now, it says that when the children of Israel sinned to the Lord their God, and feared other gods, right? So they did all these things they were not supposed to do. I'm not going to go down the list again. It's an extremely long list of everything that they did wrong. But they did everything wrong. I mean, everything. All the stuff they're not supposed to do, they did it. So God exiles them. He lets them get exiled away. And it also notes that Judah also did wrong. Judah also failed to follow the correct ways. But keep in mind that the dynasty of David is basically protected. So for this reason, they're allowed to stay, I think is really the takeaway here. But everybody's just doing totally wrong in the cities and the tribes of Israel. So the people Israel are cast out other than the tribe of Judah. They're exiled into Babylon, into Assyria, and this is their punishment. So what happens next is he takes Babylonians and from other places as well, different people within the Assyrian Empire, and settles them inside of the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. So they basically get moved into the land of Israel. And at first, they don't really know or fear the God of Israel, and so God sends lions to attack them. And they're getting totally beat up by lions. And they tell the king of Assyria, listen, you sent all those people there, but they don't know the laws of how to follow the local god, and he's kind of tearing them apart with lions. So we need help here, man. And the king says, okay, let's send one of the priests from exile to go live there and teach them the ways. So what ends up happening is a priest goes and settles into Bethel, and he teaches them how they should fear the Lord. And so it says that each nation made its god and placed it in the temple of the high places that the people of Samaria had made. So they take these Sumerian temples, and they basically put their own gods in them. And it says, which gods were made by whom, and so on, and how they did their sacrifices. And it's basically, they do it the way they always did it. And so the problem here is that Israel was commanded not to do this, but Israel went ahead and did it. So the takeaway is that these new settlers from Assyria that have been placed in the land of Israel, they are now worshiping their own gods, but also are paying homage to the God of Israel as well. So they basically are just doing both. They're doing just like what used to be done. So in any case, the Israelites have lost the land, as was promised in the conversations with Moses as we reach the end of the Torah. So it says, the nations feared the Lord, yet they worshipped their graven images, and also their children and their grandchildren, as their forefathers had done, they are doing until this day. So with that being said, let's move on to the final chapter for this week, chapter 18, verse 1 of Kings 2. And it was in the 3rd year of Hoshea, the son of Elah, the king of Israel, that Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, became king. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Abi, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, like all that his father David had done. He abolished the high places, and smashed the monuments, and cut down the Asherah, and crushed the copper serpent that Moses had made. For until those days the children of Israel were burning incense to it, and he called it Nehushtan. He trusted in the God of Israel. There was none like him among all the kings of Judah who were after him, nor were there before him. He cleaved to the Lord. He did not turn away from following him. He kept his commandments which he had commanded Moses. Now the Lord was with him. In everything he ventured he succeeded. And he rebelled against the king of Assyria and did not serve him. He slew the Philistines up to Gaza and its boundaries, from watchtower to fortified cities. And it was in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, that is the 7th year of Hoshea the son of Elah, king of Israel, that Shalmaneser the king of Assyria went up to Samaria and laid siege to it. And they captured it at the end of 3 years, in the 6th year of Hezekiah, which is the 9th year of Hoshea king of Israel. Samaria was captured. And the king of Assyria exiled Israel to Assyria, and he settled them in Halah and in Habor, the Gozan river, and the cities of Midia. Because they did not obey the Lord their God and transgressed his covenant, all that he had commanded Moses, the servant of the Lord, and they did not obey, nor did they do his will. And in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and seized them. And Hezekiah, the king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria to Lachish, saying, I have sinned. Withdraw from me. Whatever you impose upon me, I will bear. And the king of Assyria imposed upon Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. And Hezekiah gave all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's palace. At that time Hezekiah stripped the doors of the temple of the Lord and the thresholds which Hezekiah, the king of Judah, had overlaid, and he gave them to the king of Assyria. And the king of Assyria sent Tartan and Rabsaris and Rabshakeh from Lachish to King Hezekiah with an army of a great multitude to Jerusalem. And they went up and came and stood near the conduit of the upper pool, which is on the road of the washer's field. And they summoned the king, and Eliakim the son of Hilkiah, who was appointed over the palace, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph the recorder, came out to them. And Rabshakeh said to them, Say now to Hezekiah,
So has the great king, the king of Assyria, said. What is this confidence that you have trusted? You have said but words of the lips. Counsel and might are needed for war. Now on whom do you depend that you have rebelled against me? Now behold, you have depended upon the support of this splintered reed, upon Egypt, upon whom a man will lean, and it will go into his palm, and puncture it. So is Pharaoh king of Egypt to all those who trust in him. And if you say to me, We trust Lord our God, is he not the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah has removed? He has said to Judah and to Jerusalem, Before this altar in Jerusalem shall you prostrate yourselves. And now, wager now with my lord the king of Assyria, and I will give you 2,000 horses if you are able to supply riders upon them of your men. And how can you repulse one captain of the smallest of my master's servants, and you rely on Egypt for chariots and horsemen? Now is it with other than the Lord that I have come up against this place to destroy it? The Lord said to me, Go up against this land and destroy it.
And Eliakim the son of Hilkiah and Shebna and Yoah said to Rabshakeh, Please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. Do not speak with us in Judean within the hearing of the people who are on the wall. And Rabshakeh said to them, Did my master send me to speak these words to your master and to you? Is it not to the men who sit on the wall to eat their dung and drink their urine with you? And Rabshakeh stood and called out in a loud voice in Judean, and he spoke and said, Listen to the word of the great king, the king of Assyria. So has the king said, Let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you from his hand. And let not Hezekiah make you rely on the Lord, saying, The Lord will save us, and this city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for so has the king of Assyria said, Make peace with me, and come out to me, and each man will eat of his vine, and each man of his fig tree, and each man will drink the water of his cistern. Until I come and take you to a land like your land, a land of grain and wine, a land of bread and vineyards, a land of oil yielding olives and honey, and you may live and not die. And do not heed Hezekiah, for he will mislead you, saying the Lord will save us. Have the gods of the nations saved each one from his land, from the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? He exiled them and twisted them. Now did they save Samaria from my hand? Who are they among all the gods of the lands who saved their land from my hand, that the Lord should save Jerusalem from my hand? And the people remained silent and did not answer him even one word, for it was the king's order, saying, Do not answer him. And Eliakim the son of Hilkiah, who was appointed over the palace, and Shebna the scribe, and Yoah the son of Asaph the recorder, came to Hezekiah with torn garments. And they related to him the words of Rabshakeh. End of chapter 18. All right, so here we have a great dramatic showdown. Interestingly, this seems to happen sometimes with the Book of Kings. Keep in mind that there are two kingdoms happening at the same time. There's the kingdoms of Judah, kingdoms of Israel. So we have both of these happening simultaneously, and so the way the text is written, sometimes it will reference what we already heard in a previous chapter because it's talking about it from the perspective of the other kingdom. So here we have Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, the king of Judah. Now remember, Ahaz was like super, super bad, right? But somehow his son ends up being the greatest of kings. Now, I say the greatest because of a line that appears later. It says, He trusted in the God of Israel. There was none like him among all the kings of Judah who were after him, nor were there before him. That gives me reason to think this suggests he's even better than Solomon and David. However, it's worth noting that perhaps this only refers to after Solomon, when the dynasty of David lost the rest of Israel. After all, it specifically says the kings of Judah. In any case, he's the best king of Judah there's ever been. He destroys the monuments, he destroys the high places, cuts down the Asherah, And he even destroys the copper serpent that Moses had made. So, reminder, there's a point where there are snakes that are sent to punish the children of Israel. And in an emergency situation, Moses acts to save them. He creates a rod out of copper in the shape of a serpent that is able to stop the poison and the snakes from killing the people. So this item has been preserved for all this time as a relic, and even this is destroyed. Why? Because the children of Israel were burning incense to it. In other words, they were worshiping it, treating it like an idol. So he destroyed even this sacred artifact. So it says he trusted in the God of Israel. He did not turn away. He cleaved to the Lord, followed the commandments, obeyed what Moses had written. And because of this, the Lord was with him, and everything he ventured, he succeeded. And he rebelled against the king of Assyria and did not serve him. He slays the Philistines up to Gaza. And then also we see what's going on here. The Assyrians are besieging Samaria, and they capture it after 3 years. And this is the 6th year of Hezekiah being king. Samaria is finished. So they all get exiled to Assyria, but the Judeans are fine. Now, because of what they had done by disobeying the laws, this is why this all happened to them. Again, reiterating what the previous chapter said. Now, it says here in the 14th year of Hezekiah, so 8 years later, Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, comes up against the fortified cities of Judah and seizes them. So he has now taken the cities of Judah. And he tells the king of Judah, he sends a message to the Assyrian king. Hezekiah says to the king, I have sinned, withdraw from me, whatever you impose, I will bear it. So what ends up happening is he gets an imposition of 300 talents of silver, 30 talents of gold. He gives all that he's got to give in the house of the Lord and the treasuries of the king's palace. And it notes that he strips the doors of the temple and the thresholds which Hezekiah, the king of Judah, had overlaid. He gives them to the king of Assyria. So then the king of Assyria sends some emissaries to speak in Jerusalem along with a great army. And they summoned the king as well as some of his officers, appointees, basically the scribe, the recorder, etc. And so Rabshakeh, who is speaking on behalf of the Assyrians, gives this great speech. He says, who do you lean on? Who do you trust in? They judge because of, he says about, you leaned on the Egyptians. Well, let me tell you about what the Egyptians are like. The Egyptians are like a split reed. It's like a weak staff that when you lean on it, breaks and stabs you in the hand. So if you're going to tell me you trust in the king of Egypt, well, that's just stupid. If you're going to tell me you trust in the Lord your God, well, if that's true, is that not the one whose altars Hezekiah removed? Now, important thing here, they don't know the difference, right? So as far as they know, those altars belong to the God of Israel, but in fact, the ones that Hezekiah removed were foreign altars. So it's a misunderstanding here. And then, he has said to Judah and to Jerusalem, before this altar in Jerusalem shall you prostrate yourselves. Okay, good. And now wager now with my lord the king of Assyria, and I will give you 2,000 horses if you are able to supply riders upon them of your men. So I think what he's saying is that I will give you 2,000 horses if you want to try us. If you want to try it, if you want to give it a chance, wager now with my lord, the king of Assyria. If you want to gamble on whether or not you can win, I'll even give you 2,000 horses if you can come up with 2,000 soldiers. And how can you repulse one captain of the smallest of my master's servants? And you rely on Egypt for chariots and horsemen. He's just totally dunking on them and insulting them. And so it's basically the reality is, now is it with other than the Lord that I've come up against this place to destroy it? The Lord said to me, go up against this land and destroy it. So the speakers on behalf of Judea, that previous line, by the way, I'm assuming it's also from the same speaker rather than coming from the side of the Judeans, but I think it's Rabshakeh. In any case, Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, and Shebna, son of Yoav, respond. He says, please speak to us in Aramaic rather than speaking in Judean, because we don't want the people of the town to basically hear this and understand what you're saying. And Rabshakeh says, did my master send me to speak these words to your master and to you? Is it not to the men who sit on the wall to eat their dung and drink their urine with you? So he's basically saying, you think this message was just for you people? No, this is for everybody. And then he gets up and he makes a loud proclamation. And he says, in short, he tells them, don't be fooled by your king. He's not going to deliver you from the Assyrians. Let me ask you, what God was able to stop us before? Don't listen to Hezekiah, because the king of Assyria says, make peace with me and come out to me, and you'll have your own vineyard, your own trees, your own... He's basically telling them, turn on your king and you'll be rewarded. And then eventually I'm going to take you from your land and send you to another land that is very similar to yours. It's got great things. So just whatever you do, trust us. Don't listen to this guy who's saying that the Lord will save you, because the gods of the other nations did not save them. And what happened to this one and that one and that one, right? All of them got wiped out. So in short, ain't happening, dude. You guys don't even listen to the king. Turn on him. What say you? And they don't respond. The people of Judea do not respond, because they were ordered not to respond. And so this entire speech from Rabshakeh is brought back to the king of Judea. And we will find out what comes of this next time. What a wild journey. This is crazy stuff. Going up against the Assyrians is not some small feat. Obviously, they've been conquering everyone. And, we're going to see, in all likelihood, this is going to be another one of those amazing God rescue stories where they doubt in the God of Israel, but they're going to find out. FAFO. So please look forward to it. I'm very much looking forward to the next chapter. Until next time, this has been Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2, saying thank you for listening, and I hope you'll tune in next time. Until then, as always, Baruch Hashem.